In November, I released a video ranking every movie to win Best Picture at the Oscars. Now, the Academy had to go and ruin the whole 3-hour video by daring to give another movie the award. This video is an add-on to that one. I'm going to discuss Anora and reveal how I felt it stacks up against the group. Anora took the Oscars by storm, winning 5 of the 6 awards it was nominated for on the night: editing, screenplay, director, best actress, and best picture. The Academy clearly loved this movie, and I agree with them. Anora is about, well, Anora, who goes by Annie. She is a stripper in New York who starts meeting with a new client, Vanya, the son of a Russian oligarch. Vanya pays Annie 15 grand to spend an entire week with him, at which they fly to Vegas and Vanya marries Annie. Vanya does this in defiance of his parents, and just because he wants to have a fun time. They say they love each other at this point. Once Vanya's parents find out about his actions, they orders Vanya's grandfather to get the marriage annulled. Toros, Garnik, and Igor make their way to the house. These three are generally known as the goons of the movie. Once the goons arrive, Vanya runs away, and the rest of the movie is Annie plus goons searching for Vanya. They find him and nullify the marriage. Annie is left alone, abandoned by Vanya. I really liked this movie on first watch. Then I started to watch cast interviews, Baker talking, and all of them at the award shows. Their energy was just so infectious during press, it made me like the movie even more and root for it. The cast made the movie a little more personal, taking it from a great movie to one that had more sentimental value on top of it. The first clip I saw was an interview Assel Scherer did with Mark Eidenstein, who played Vanya, Mikey Madison, who played Annie, and Yuri Borisov, who plays Igor. The interview asks Yuri a question in Russian. He responds in Russian. Mark leans over and starts to translate for Mikey so she can understand the conversation. He then later asks to speak in English so Mikey can understand the whole thing. I just find this to be unbelievably adorable. I would never stop to consider translating for a non-speaker. Maybe I'm just shallow though. It shows heart and consideration. This cast felt new and exciting. Even Baker, who has been around, felt fresh to me. Anora was my first movie of his. It's the first he has released since I began following movies. I started following the Oscars in the 2022 season, and nothing has felt this new to me. Jamie Lee Curtis, Brendan Fraser, Ke Huy Quan, and Michelle Yeoh have had established careers and been around for decades. Robert Downey Jr., Cillian Murphy, Emma Stone, and Christopher Nolan aren't fresh faces. It was fun to find a new group of friends to parasocially bond with. Not in a creepy way. I'm just a fan of these people as entertainers. The interviews post-Oscars where Baker talked about filming with the Florida Project kid, Mark's lipstick story, Chicken Shop Date, Yuri Borisov's smile and laugh all made me like it more. What an adorable man. Yuri Borisov's smile just makes me happy. Look at him. What a handsome, happy man. However, my favorite extracurricular that this cast got up to this season was during the Oscar ceremony itself. The first time I noticed it was when Sean Baker won Best Director. He stood up to hug his wife, and all of a sudden he gets rushed behind him by Mark and Yuri hugging and hyping him up. Then Mikey wins Best Actress, and everyone groups up to hype her up. I need someone to look at me the way Yuri Borisov looks at her here. He is so happy for her. That is a real friend, somebody who has your back and appreciates your success. I realize I've spent the whole video not talking about the movie mostly. There was so much context beyond the 2 hours that affected my feelings on this movie. I just think it's nice to focus and discuss positives like this in celebrity culture. It endeared me to this movie and the people behind it. Authenticity and passion are not dead. My thoughts on this movie are so scattered, and I have so many of them. So I'm just going to start talking about why this movie rules. The balance of comedy and emotion. That's it. That's what makes this soar. The balance isn't achieved by bringing one down, but instead, both aspects rise and meet each other. This is the funniest movie of the decade, and in competition for funniest ever. The comedy largely comes from the personality of the characters. Annie, Vanya, Toros all have loud, distinct personalities, with Igor playing the straight man fish out of water. I remember so many little moments and jokes that don't happen when I watch movies. Annie's sister asking if she bought milk, Annie just responding, "Is there any in the fridge?" And maybe the funniest line delivery ever. It's hard to explain comedy and what makes jokes funny. Doing so ruins the comedy even. So I'll stop yapping and move on. You know what? No, I won't stop yapping because that's what this movie did. Annie is constantly talking. Every other character is constantly talking. But at no point does Annie back down. She asserts herself, and I love movies that are like this. People talking in rooms is one of my favorite subgenres. Now to talk about the emotional through line and Annie as a character. The main complaint I see thrown at Anora is that Annie doesn't have agency or any defining characteristics. And after my first watch, I felt a little similar. Saying in my first review, Annie felt a little thinner character-wise than I like, but upon reflection and rewatch, I no longer agree with that thought. The reason I think I felt that way is because the movie doesn't ever tell you Annie's feelings or thoughts. It doesn't set anything in your lap. You have to watch closely, notice little facial tics. So much of Annie is felt by her expression in any given moment, and only for a slight second. Annie puts up a tough front because of her job and financial situation. I'm about to get into social economic status and sex work, and I'm a little worried I can't fully explain my feelings. So take everything I say here with a little grain of salt. I'm not an expert on sex work. Sex work had traditionally been depicted very poorly in cinema, paper thin at best, either as an awful, shameful career people are forced into, or an amazing career women slay their way into with complete control. Both are pretty basic and two-dimensional without acknowledging the reality of the situation. First off, any job is done because you need to make money, and that's how Baker treats stripping in this. As a job, Anora presents the idea that these are people without much, especially compared to Russian oligarch, without demonizing the way Annie goes about curing her economic status. This happens by comparing her to Igor. They are equally tragic, selling out to a higher class. Her going on to her boss about a 401k shows that this is a job and normalizes that, and it's not some fantasy lifestyle. This movie's take on sex work is remarkably nuanced and feels authentic to a group of people I don't know, and never being exploitative. I could be wrong about that, but that's just how it seems to me. The same nuance is given to Annie. She has some social power, the ability to get these men to pay her, and she is shown to be really good at it, code switching with different clients in order to get them to pay her more. On a personal level, she has power over her clients, but on the macro scale, they pay her. The clients are the ones with real power in society. This cycle of being largely powerless hardens Annie, gives her an exterior that's tough to break, and she works hard to pour herself out of the endless grind. She marries Vanya for the financial security, but also because she loves him, or at least she thinks she does. There is a dichotomy present in almost every aspect of this movie, best summed up with the final scene. In the final scene, after Vanya has abandoned Annie, making it clear he never cared for her, Igor takes her home. Annie has hated Igor the entire movie, disgusted by him tying her up and berating him. But Igor has shown Annie care and humility even while doing his job. He was the only person to treat Annie like a real human. He gives Annie back the ring he took earlier in the movie. She crawls onto his lap, they start to have sex. She freaks out, hitting him, and they embrace. This scene is brilliant in the context of Baker's filmography, but first let me explain why it's great on its own. It shows Annie as multifaceted. I've seen many claims online that this scene devalues Annie, showing she only cares about sex, but that's ignoring the fact that she's hitting him and crying and embraces him. In this moment, Annie is broken and exhausted. She doesn't like Igor, while also feeling a level of comfort thanks to him. They are each other's equals. She is allowed to be attracted to Igor while being deeply frustrated and grossed out by him. I think people saying this ending lacks depth shows they themselves lack depth. It's a statement that suggests people have to be monoliths and don't account for multiple conflicting feelings. The ending minute of this is a burst of emotions and a cycle of them. This is the only time Annie cries in the movie. She lets her guard down around someone who treats her like human, even if she has her problems with Igor on a personal level. Brilliantly layered and devastating. Time to stop talking about Anora specifically and briefly summarize Baker's filmography. His leads are often flawed sex workers. He sticks to his indie sensibilities and his endings are very distinct. The prime example is The Florida Project. Mooney is a young kid who lives in deep poverty. It's a really harsh reality she's thrown into. Her mom Haley does everything she can to shield Mooney from the harsh realities, loves and cares for her. Haley lashes out at people throughout the movie but never Mooney. The end of the movie comes when Child Services comes to investigate Haley. Mooney is heartbroken by learning she has to leave her mom for a while and runs to Disney World, which they lived right next to. Disney World was presented as the glamour opposed to Mooney's life. It's a really idyllic ending. She gets to go be happy in the dreamland that is Disney World, and not what really happened. Mooney running to Disneyland is a dream sequence, what Mooney wanted. Red Rocket ended in a similar dream sequence. Tangerine ends on a happy note of friendship. The typical structure to Baker movies is that the characters live in realities for the most part, harsh realities at that from time to time. Then they end it with this dreamy life they wish they had. Anora flips that structure on its head entirely. Annie gains the dream life early on when she marries Vanya. Financial stability and a guy she cares about. She lives in a delusional world far from reality. Then it slowly unravels. The final scene is the opposite of Mooney going to Disney. It's the crushing realization that the dream is over. This is the low point in reality. I have thrown so much praise at this because it deserves the love, but there is one part of the production I have to bring up. Anora did not have an intimacy coordinator, which is crazy. This movie didn't have anyone on set specialized in making sure actors and crew were safe during sex scenes. And there are so many of them. I saw a clip where Baker was asked about this. He said Mikey and Mark said they didn't need one, and Baker felt comfortable directing sex scenes because he did it before, so there was no need to hire an intimacy coordinator. I think this is an awful take, to be honest. Directing sex scenes before does not mean you do so safely. The actors saying they don't need one shouldn't matter. It is a role that should be legally required on sets. An intimacy coordinator is not just there for the actor. That is their main focus, but they are also there for the crew and everyone else. Just hire an intimacy coordinator. Make filming sex scenes safer and better for everyone. I don't really see the other side of this coin. So, how does Anora stack up against the other 96 Best Picture winners? Really well. It immediately enters the ring as a top contender. As of writing, I have it at 7th out of 97, taking the spot of Godfather 2. The 6 above it in order from 6 to 1 are One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Ben-Hur, Casablanca, Oppenheimer, Amadeus, and The Departed. People have generally considered this year's Oscar cycle to be weak, and I thought that it was too until I really looked at it. Anora carried this season's success on its own.
Stay jealous, babe. Stay jealous, honey. Jealousy is a disease. Remember that, Diamond?
If you enjoyed, please subscribe. I'm going to be releasing new videos every Tuesday. Like and comment. I respond to pretty much every comment. Thanks for watching.